Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to have you here and to be here with KT. And honestly, KT, I think we've told you this many times, but our team at Plan, we often are sending your photos back and forth. We've just always been in awe of your work and are just so proud to have you as a planner and using Plan. So just a quick mention, because I'm going to let KT kind of take it away, but we will be answering questions at the end. And so any questions you have, make sure to ask them throughout the webinar, and then I will save them on my end and go ahead and bring them to you, KT, at the end for you to answer then.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And yes, I am a Plan user, and I'm excited to just give you all a little bit background about my journey and how I use this tool, as well as the other things that have really helped me in my photography career. So I've got a short presentation, and just to kind of give us some visuals and to dive into some things that have really helped me along the way. So would you like me to dive into it, Grenna?
Yes, perfect. I'll see you all in a little bit, and I'm so excited to see this as well. So yeah, I'll be back on in a while. Bye, everyone.
All right, let me navigate right over here. Well, for those of you that don't know me, my name is KT Mary. I am a luxury destination wedding and editorial photographer, and have spent the last nearly couple decades in the photography industry, and am here just to share a little bit about my journey, a few things that I have really helped me along the way, and I hope will find helpful to you. So to kind of fill you in a little bit on my story, as I mentioned, I have been in this industry, weddings, for about 15 years, and in fashion for about 5 years from that. But most people don't know I actually did not want to be a wedding photographer. That was never my intention. And my journey started really far from the luxury market that I serve today. So to give you a little bit of a background, I'm from a small town in northern Nevada, and started out as a wrangler, won a photography competition in high school through a small photo class that we had in our Nevada classroom, with a small dark room, and ended up doing a state competition and then a national competition that won me a photography scholarship that took me out of that Nevada town and kind of on the path to being a photographer. So I went to school for photography in Massachusetts, and as I mentioned, I had no desire to be a wedding photographer. Back then, weddings were not what they are today, and it was really kind of before they transitioned into being these creative events that they are. And back then, it was much more, white tablecloths and church basements, that type of thing. And so I dove into being a fashion photographer, and worked for fashion photographers for about 5 years as a photographer's assistant. So that meant I was hauling equipment around. I traveled around the world working for fashion photographers, holding scrims, just like you see here, and really breaking my way into an industry that at the time, and honestly still is, very male dominated, and spent a lot of time learning from the fashion photographers that I worked for, and learned a ton, as well as, like I said, got that education of traveling all over the world. Okay, and I hope you can all still hear me. Good. Eventually, that transition to weddings, what they are today, did in fact happen. Around the time, about 5 years into shooting or working for fashion photographers, that's right around when blogs began. We really started to see the shift in the industry. Martha Stewart Weddings really morphed the wedding industry into kind of this journey of what we see today. And I have now been in the wedding industry for about 14 years, shooting luxury events all over the world, and have really been able to be along this journey as weddings grew. My business did as well. And I've had the pleasure of being featured and working with a lot of publications through the years, and always continuously also shooting editorial, doing personal shoots for myself, as well as shooting for brands and bridal designers, and continuing to kind of expand and bring that editorial side of my work into the wedding world. And so that is something that's really helped me through the years to really continue to step into that luxury market and kind of set my work apart. And one of the things that also, in addition to growing my work, has really helped me is to continue to evolve as that business owner, the entrepreneur, and that has, I think, really what's been able to help me continue to grow all these years. And so one of the things that I think is really important for all you creatives, whether it's you're just starting in photography or you are years in, is to always understand that building that creative business, that art and business aren't at odds, and in fact they can truly thrive together. And so that was something that I resisted early on, and we're going to talk a little bit more about in a bit, but it's something that I think when we kind of bring these things together and bring some of that structure, that it allows our creativity to really flourish. So I'm going to go through just a few of the kind of foundations, the pillars that have really helped me to be able to build some success on the business side to allow me to be more creative, and I think will really help you as well. So something that I refine year after year is this client experience. So it's really about not only being obsessed with the work that you're creating, but being obsessed with the customers that you're serving. So whether that is you're shooting a landscape that's going to be hung in somebody's home, or you are shooting a portrait session or a wedding, and you're going to be providing those experiences and those weddings and those photos that are going to last them a long time. It's really important year after year to keep questioning, how can I be better? How can I serve more? What can I do? So that's something that we continuously go back to. And regardless of your market, regardless if you are in year 1 or year 10, or you are in Oklahoma or New York City, I think it's really important to operate as a luxury business, regardless of your market. And so that just means that everybody appreciates a refined and luxury approach, also known as a white glove approach. So I'm sure you can attest to this, that whether you are at a 5-star restaurant or you are at, a to-go counter, that good customer service, somebody seeing you and really taking time and attention towards you and really going above and beyond, is something that we all always appreciate. And so what that can look like, and what that looks like for me, is to do custom proposals over packages. This is just a way to tailor things directly to clients, to really becoming a master of communication. Why this is important is there's so many things that we need to kind of articulate to our customers. We have to invite people into our vision and really getting them on board to understand why we want them to dress a certain way, or we need to shoot at a certain time, or to, in the moment, to really get them to relax and disarm and really become vulnerable in front of the camera. All of these things can be helped through masterful communication. And then another way that you can absolutely do that is that FaceTime is really important. So, especially during this time, we've all been so separated, that the more that you can get on Zoom, get in front of your customers and really connect with them one-to-one, that is really, really important. And ultimately, always coming back to this serve, serve, serve. How can you anticipate their needs? How can you continually over-deliver and go that extra mile? And that is just something that when you have that approach, not only with your work of just being dedicated and passionate to the best outcome, but also to the client experience, it's when you bring those two things together that you really, really create something special. And some of the kind of really practical, simple ways that I do this on all of the things that we do are really being over-prepared. I am a military brat, and I think preparedness, you can never be too prepared, so you can never be over-informed. I really like to go through all of these things, anticipate all the roadblocks. And to that, I like to show up at least a full day before I start shooting, and really make sure that I'm scouting everything, I'm shooting B-roll, I'm really feeling like I completely have a good plan for what I'm going to shoot and can start visualizing that. We'll also, lastly, be always going above and beyond, means being willing to do things that are outside of your job description. So there are times when creating photos or holding a camera is not what is needed most for the collective experience or what the client really needs. And so there was a circumstance that we had a event outside of Italy, and we had clients literally circling in a helicopter, getting ready to join their guests for the first event, which was a game night. and there were about 100 water balloons that the Plann'r team was frantically trying to fill to get ready for this couple. We saw the panic in their eyes. Our team put their cameras down, went into full-blown water balloon assembly line, and just started filling those because it was really what the event needed most in that moment. And so it's always looking for those opportunities to serve even without a camera. And the other thing that I always think is important, and this is something we're going to talk about in terms of your social media too, but to really be able to show what you want to shoot or show what you want to attract. So even if you're not a photographer, we all know that like attracts like, that people want to see what they're buying. So if you are wondering, how you can get that work, we have to start showing it to them. And I know this is a little bit of the chicken and egg scenario, and I found myself in the same scenario. Well, I want to shoot in Bali, but how do I get to Bali if I can't show Bali? And so I kind of just got creative about solving that problem myself. And these photos, at least the two with the girl, were some of the first editorial personal portfolio shots that I did about 10 years ago. And these were shot in Isla Mirada, but Bali inspired. So they were really setting the stage for that destination work and really helping me to attract that before I had that actual work in my portfolio. So if you want to shoot in Bali, then you better have photos that look like you've shot in Bali. And of course, we're not going to have you misrepresent, but you can absolutely have things that have that same vibe, have that same feeling that will really resonate with the client that is looking to create that same thing in that location. So that is something that I think is really important in personal projects as a whole. I think it's really important to always be shooting for yourself. Over quarantine, we went to Oregon and shot a personal project for a friend, designer Joy Proctor. And these are just things that we're always flexing our creative muscles and building a portfolio that supports our goals. So it's just really always vital to just keep creating and creating outside of when people are paying you to do that. And the big part of that when we're talking about creating is to make sure that we are not ignoring the business side. And I am numero uno in terms of guilty of this for about the first 7 years of my business, that it was really the work that fed me, more figuratively than literally, but it was really the work that fed me in terms of I really wasn't that concerned. Yes, I raised my prices and grew my revenue each year, which was good enough for me, but I certainly wasn't analyzing the profitability, how I could leverage different things. And this was one of the biggest mistakes that I made in my business. So I know, as creatives, this is something that we typically like to kind of look at last. But there are 3 major categories that you should be looking at in terms of numbers. And this is, financial. Do you know your profit margin? How much are you making an hour? Analytical. So how are your clients finding you? Which marketing outlets are giving you that ROI, which aren't? Booking. So paying attention to your rate and volume. When your ideal client is falling off the sales pipeline, if you're easily booking up in a year in advance. For example, I know some photographers are like, I'm booked for 2022 and it's 2021. And then my first thing will be, well, it's time to raise prices. That we are definitely priced too low if that's the case. So this is just something that I think what we'll do is continue to kind of bring this idea that the more structure that you create, the more creative you can be. And so to this next point, that really expediting your workflow is so important. And as my business has grown, this foundation has become really increasingly important for me in terms of having some systems, having some processes that help you get there faster. So I know it is counterintuitive. I know that we all got into a creative life to not have guardrails, to not have structure, but it is ironic, but it's true. The more structure you have, the more you can embrace being creative. It will not only save you time, it will save you money and energy because you're not recreating everything you do every single time. So looking at the types of things that you might do over and over, where can we create a process around that? Where can we optimize? Where can we systematize? And I know these are all words that when you dive into a creative lifestyle are not kind of the things that typically are really getting you excited and just passionate about. But when we don't have these things in place, that's when we experience things like burnout. That's when we experience things like lack of inspiration or starting to lose our passion in what we do. And I know this firsthand because I have done that. And it's ultimately, I realized that I needed to create an environment in which things could get done where I wasn't bogged down with them. So I could actually have the white space to be able to create, to be inspired, and to be passionate, even 15 plus years in. So paving the road to success by developing systems you'll need when success comes. So this is a little bit like planning ahead for the growth that you're going to have. So I think most of us, what I did at least, is I just dove in before you know it, shooting 35, 40 weddings a year. And then, oh my gosh, we are overwhelmed. Now I need to create systems where I would love to have as many people as possible, to have you reverse engineer, put these systems in place now and allow that growth to happen and never hit that burnout or that crisis where you have a, oh my gosh, we need to, overhaul everything now. So some of my favorite tools for systemizing in my business are, a CRM, so something to kind of track incoming leads and projects. This is the reason that I created our preset, which allows us to just make editing so much faster instead of going through each photo, again and again and again, really getting that recipe baked in so it is fast, even when it's on the mobile phone or anything like that. So any which way that we can save time. And over the years, I started working with an assistant and now have a small team. And so that is really where eventually we needed a system for how we did that. So that is when we started working with Plann'r. And the main reason that we started initially working with Plann'r was because I was having my team, my one assistant at the time was helping me with social to be able to plug in and kind of start to plan our social content. And then for us both to have visibility of that. So it allowed us to batch work, especially when I knew I'd be traveling or too busy to post or blog. So it's really easy to batch the content on Plann'r, which I know that you all know. And I know you all are users already. So if you know these things, then disregard. But I wanted to show you just a little bit how I use it and how my content manager and I use it. So we definitely have these buckets in terms of we are deciding for each brand, and we are running 4 social and Instagram accounts. So we have these buckets determined. So this is our social, our passion project, Render Loyalty, which is focused on conservation and wildlife. And we sell fine art prints that donate back to the conservancies where we photographed them. And so as you will see here, we're having our different buckets in terms of some behind the scenes, something about elephants, something about conservation, something showing the product in a frame. And so this is really easy for my content manager to go ahead and fill those slots to put the caption in. I will review, edit, approve, and then she will schedule. So if you're working solo, this can also help you capture ideas and to sketch out that plan to make sure that you're honoring those buckets. And this is something that can be really, really great to make sure that you're kind of following that schedule. So you're not just posting the same type of shot again and again and again. So I think, really hitting all those different areas is really, really great and something that I love to do as well. And then lately, I'm sure you guys have seen this, that we now have the ability to auto post that first comment. This is really, really great because this is something that my content manager is great at doing, this first comment with the additional hashtags that we want. I historically am not, that I will post and I'll get to engaging, but I won't get all those extra hashtags in there. So it's a really, really great way to just, once again, making sure we're getting as much bang for our buck out of each and every post. And I love, love, love this feature because we can go ahead and set it up and get that first comment already in there. And so it's great for my busy team when someone's out of the office to be able to set up the schedule of these things. I will say it's really important to us, and I hope to you all, that we are still engaging. So while we are going to set these things up, we are absolutely, not ghosting them after we post it. We're still making sure to engage with every comment, and that's really, really important to me. But it's great to not have to to really be able to predetermine this and not be trying to last minute throw those hashtags in there. So these are all ways where, once again, it's something that we can just take the guesswork out of and really be able to just kind of systematize this so we can create a plan and execute it, and then create more white space in terms of the options that we have. So that's just kind of a glimpse in how I use Plan, and a little bit of background about myself. But mainly, one of the things that we are here for today is the conversation. So I know that we are going to dive over into some Q&A, and I am going to hop out here to make sure you all are still with. But
oh, okay, perfect.
Oh, hold on, sorry.
No worries.
All right, I'm here.
Thank you so much. It was so interesting hearing more about your background and just more about your business. And there's just so much that goes into it, more than just being creative, but there's just so much behind the scenes and so many moving parts. So it was really interesting to hear. We had some questions while you're speaking, so I guess we'll get to those first, and anyone else, if you have questions, I can see them. So let's start with Jackie. Jackie asked, do you have any advice on photographing fabric? She has a fabric company, and she's just starting. So any advice on like equipment or composition or anything like that?
Yeah, and I would be super. Sorry, you still there?
Yes. Okay. You left, and now you're back.
It's so weird to just like these little wheels start turning. I'm not sure. So Jackie, yes, I would be super curious, because I'm envisioning like the big rolls of fabric, those types of, like, you've got tons of those in a studio type of thing. So please, if you're in the comments, let us know if that is not the case or if it's something different. But in that case, I always love to really kind of, I call it the shot within the shot. So what I mean by that is that if, let's just say you do have this, this studio where you've got all these rolls of fabric, I would love to see kind of that whole scene, because it looks very interesting. And like, I might want to just be pulling the different fabrics out. And then let's say you have one roll that you might roll out on a table, then I would go ahead and shoot that. And then I would shoot, the actual detail where you can see the actual, fabric texture. And this is where, once again, in something like Plan, we might, like, once you see that carousel, to me, that would be so much more interesting to see kind of the context of the whole studio than this one that like has hands unrolling it, and then this super fine detail where you see that texture of the fabric. So to me, it's always about looking for that shot with them. And that's, what I would do to get started.
Wow, that's amazing. It sounds like you just planned out her whole grid on Plan. Awesome. Christine said, I loved your point about customizing everything. I'd love to hear some of your ideas here, and if you find it challenging while also being true and consistent with your brand. So is it hard to customize and kind of stay true to yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question, because obviously you are going to need to know your lane and your niche. So a good example would be somebody wants me to shoot their wedding. They would prefer that everything, all the portraits be done in 5 minutes. They all be done after sunset. And they would actually prefer that I use, like, I'm just going to go wild here, but like, like a really cool, like pink, bright light to make it like really moody and like Las Vegas. That's not the type of customization we're talking about. If somebody comes and says that, you go, great. I'm so glad you know exactly what you want. And I know somebody who is amazing, and they do like all this cool stuff with all these lights. And I think you guys would be a match made in heaven. So then you kindly give them what is best for them. What I mean is more identifying that this person or this couple or this client is a fit for you, that you are a good match. And then going, okay, I'm going to learn everything I can about you. For example, getting on that Zoom call, and when you ask them to describe their vision, she said like Tuscan inspired, and so I'm just going to once again kind of reflect back what she showed me or they showed me, and kind of find ways to do that. Or ways that we've started to do this is even just if we do see the need to give a little gift or anything like that, to not do what I call blanket gifting. And no, it's not about giving blankets, but it is about, just buying 20 of something and you send it to those 20 people. I think instead, tailoring that a little bit more is a bit more thoughtful. And so that's kind of what I mean in terms of that customization. But I think first and foremost, you have to know, what your niche is and who you truly serve. And then within that, you can customize.
That makes so much sense. And I love how you frame that, because it's really like confirming to your clients that you hear them, you see their vision, you're kind of comforting them in that, when you really customize what they're wanting and reflecting it back to them. Thank you so much. And then Susanna asked, what are your thoughts about comparing different kinds of styles/projects into the Instagrid? How do you make it look like your brand, even though you work with different companies?
That's great. That's a great question. And I think this is a challenge when you are, say, a creative vendor who is pulling together photos from different photographers. I see this happen with Plann'rs a lot, that they will work with a photographer who has this style, and then they'll work with a photographer that has this style, and you put it all together and it can kind of be a bit mushy, like not very cohesive. So you get that consistent work. And yes, some of them might come in and you might feature some of those, but sometimes I think kind of going, what do I need for my brand, and just taking ownership of that, I think can be really a great thing. So depending on your niche, if that's possible, finding a way to do some of that yourself. And I think so many, for example, florists have had amazing work with this, that they have just started shooting their own work. And it does mean that they had to, learn a little bit about photography, but they got that one window and that tripod there, and they just started shooting their own work, and boom, it was cohesive. And that was really when I think we've seen a lot of florists have success with that. So if that is possible, great. And then if not, just make sure you're continuously going back to those buckets. I think once again, the more that we can kind of move in and out of a story. So if there is a wide shot, or let's just say you decide every 5th post you're going to have a quote, I think you can create consistency even if the photos are a little different, because you're following kind of this pattern, and that will come up in your feed.
Yeah, definitely. And I was actually speaking when you got logged off for a moment to some of our planners, and they were saying like, yeah, some of them work in different industries, but that's what's so amazing is like, I feel like now so many people feel inspired to like pick up a camera and really take ownership over their work. Yes. And become creative, and just to have that creative control. And yes. I love that. That's a great answer.
To that point, between presets and the new iPhones,
Edward asked, what's your process before photo shoots? Do you create mood boards? How do you kind of come up with that initial idea?
That's a great question. So yes, I do. For those of you that are on Pinterest, I love Pinterest for just compiling a lot of inspiration. So you can always find me there. But I do create just kind of ongoing when I get an idea for something that maybe I isn't even on my radar to create yet. I will just kind of have these ongoing mood boards. And then when it's time to really, okay, we're going to actually create a shoot. Once again, that will kind of be the foundation of starting a mood board there, and then really working into a more finalized, instead of just in Pinterest, I'll actually move that out and do that type of collage where it's like, okay, these are our final ideas. And then what I've started doing more recently in the last few years, especially for our editorial shoots, is once we have that initial mood board, but then once I've gone and done the scout and we actually have the clothing, and I actually know the models and things like that, I will move into more of a storyboard scenario, meaning I will shoot the location, I will have a picture of the dress, I will have a picture of the model, or if there's jewels or the hairstyle, and I will actually put all those together and lay them out. So I kind of have a visual game plan. And of course, things are going to change things are, going to come up and kind of move and shake, but it really has helped to build out that plan. And especially when you're shooting for a full day, to really kind of plan out via the light and to make sure that you have a good idea versus winging it. And that's something I think very early on that used to get me kind of hung up a lot, was just like this, now what, I've got these people, need to guide them. Now, where am I going to take them? Where are we going next? So that's really where scouting in advance.
Next, what do we do next?
Absolutely.
Do you prefer when, like, for example, let's take brides, for example. Do you prefer when they come to you with like a really set vision of what they're looking for? Or do you like kind of having that freedom to kind of also bring your ideas into it?
Yeah, I think, it can absolutely go both ways. I think there is something really wonderful about a couple that knows what they want, that has they can show you, hey, these are the reasons that, like, I was drawn to your work, or drawn to this location, or drawn to whatever it may be. And I also do love when they go, hey, love your work a lot, but I also love a little bit of this, and can we weave some of that in? And I think if it's not, replicate this shot, because we don't necessarily want to get into doing that too much. But I think that I'm always open for the challenge and evolution. It's always great to be finding ways to kind of push our work past what we have and what we have done in the past, and to always keep experimenting. So that's something that I will always keep doing, is kind of doing what I know is solid, what I've done before, but then always leaving room for that experimentation and kind of just seeing what will happen with that. And I think the clients appreciate that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam asked, have you struggled with finding your style? Do you feel like your style has changed and will continue to change in the future?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What's interesting is, I think, was getting back to shooting film. I started shooting film because there was no digital when I started. And then eventually, once digital came about, I shot digital, and then I went back to film, and essentially now I'm a hybrid photographer. And I think when you're having trouble finding your style, film is a really, really great tool for that. And the reason I think that is because you aren't stuck in kind of already this critique of looking at the back of the camera while you're creating, that you have to learn to trust that inner eye and that inner compass of kind of what feels good to you. And so I think it's a really great tool, regardless of whether you want to bring it into your workflow, even just to bring into your personal work, to find your style. It really helped me a lot, and has helped me to continue to evolve it. And whenever I'm feeling like, gosh, it's just not working, or I just don't, it just doesn't feel as good, often just getting a film camera in my hands will help that. And so I think style is something that, while I kind of have a signature style at this point, I hope, it will always keep evolving. And that comes down to that challenge that we talked about earlier, that we're always going back to, how can we experiment more? What can we do a little bit differently? While kind of holding true to the things that we know work and that we've done in the past.
Absolutely. I purchased my first film camera last summer.
Okay.
And I was just like, I had no idea if any shots were going to turn out, but it was so fun just to not know and just to be in the moment. And you're not just like messing with the settings a bunch. Like, you're just kind of like, okay, this is my vision. I hope it turns out. And then when you get those photos back, you're just like, for me, I was shocked that they ended up turning out at all. And then I just fell in love with them. So that's such a good idea, to find your style and use that as a tool.
That I think really, really comes over time. Some of those things that I mentioned, though, about you can never be over-informed about that preparedness. 90% of the time that I am ever like going, oh my gosh, something, I'm trying to like catch up to it. It's because I could have done more on the front end to just, get there earlier. So I'm there, I'm ready. I'm not running late and already setting myself up to have kind of a frantic energy, or I've done the scout, the B-roll, so I know where I'm going. I've, I've tested all my cameras. I have backups. So all those types of things, like, how many things can we eliminate from your worries so you can, once again, focus on your creativity? And I think that is number one. And I will go back to film again, that film, I think it does teach you to know inside of your intuition of, I've got the shot, or I need to do this, or this isn't working. It can really help you in that regard. But I think the number one thing you can do is just to shoot as much as you can. I second shot, I associate shot. I did all that for years while I was a photo assistant. So that meant every weekend, even though I hadn't fully launched my wedding business yet, I was just out there shooting. And we all know, practice. I always bring up Serena Williams, that, she's not picking up the racket just on the day of the tournament. She is out there every single day, and she's one of the best in the world. So I think this idea that we are only picking up our cameras or our tools when somebody's paying us or when the gig is there, that is problem numero uno. So what assignments can you give yourself? How can you get out there today and just start taking pictures, even if it's, your neighbor who you noticed, her 60.
How do you make people or help people to feel comfortable in front of the camera? Obviously it's different when you're photographing models or people that are used to it, but have you had people that you've really had to work with to make them comfortable so you can really capture them?
100%. And even with models, to be honest, because, at the end of the day, I know they're beautiful, but they are still human beings on the inside. It's so strange, right?
No, who would have thought?
Who would have thought? They still have their moments of insecurity. I think a couple things. One is, whether you feel like you are it or not, you need to step fully into being that director, into being that lead on a team. If you are shooting by yourself, or you have hair and makeup there, or the mother of the bride or whomever there, that you are the one directing and guiding this experience, that you have full confidence and you've made it very clear by your actions and your intent and kind of the expectations you've set in the lead up, that, listen, I've got you, just show up. I've already got a plan. We're going to guide you through it. It's okay. You don't have to worry about anything. And so that continuous, I mentioned communication earlier, this also comes on set, that we need to be really good communicators. So tone is an important thing, that if I want them to really walk towards me and be happy and happy pace, then I'm going to get that way in my voice. And if I want them to be soft and loving to one another, like, just turn your attention towards each other and be soft and, kind of guide them. And then the number one thing, if you guys can take away, is always direct with positivity. I think one of my pet peeves is when I see anybody say, "Oh, no, don't, no, that doesn't work. No, do it this way. Like, that's not working. No, turn your head this way." We always want some empathy. Just get yourself in front of a camera and you'll very quickly get some.
Definitely.
I think it's a really great way to realize that we want to be guiding that experience and making it as effortless for them, and just them feeling very much taken care of. I equate it to my dad as a doctor and bedside manner. And I think that, when you are thinking about going and you're in a vulnerable situation outside your comfort zone, you definitely want that doctor that's guiding that experience, that goes, you just sit there. We've got it all figured out. We're going to guide it. You don't want the guy that's like, well, I don't know, what do you think we should do?
Yeah, no.
So I think that's just super important to really be the expert. Even if you feel inside that a little shaky, don't show that to your subjects.
I love that, because it really translates on camera, the way people are feeling inside and just that energy, it really shows up in photos. So it's so important, that you kind of set that mood and that energy, which I didn't really think of it like that before. So we're coming kind of to the end of our time here, which it's been so amazing, but I would love to hear more about your presets, because I can speak on them. I think I've purchased every pack of presets you have. They're just amazing. They make my work as a social media manager so much easier when it just takes the pressure off editing. And knowing that everything's going to look cohesive and at plan, that's something a lot of people struggle with, is how do I make my feed look cohesive and beautiful? And I think presets really is the answer to that. So I'd love to.
It's still difficult to, get everybody together and do these big things that we're used to. We've got these great phones, and we have presets for Lightroom. So for our photographers, we have color and black and white presets, but for all of our other creatives, our social media managers out there, we do have the mobile presets, and that's what I use in my feed for all my Insta stories, everything like that. I'm going to just edit them right in my phone. So they are cohesive with my feed, and it is a really, really big game changer. And we went ahead, and for everyone that is here who is interested, they are the Refined times KT Mary preset. So if you just Google Refined KT Mary or go to refinedco.com, but we've got the code.
I'll put the link right now in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we've got the code KT Refined, and that's going to get you 15% off any of the KT Mary presets. So for anybody who's just looking like, what can I do right now to make my feed a little bit better, to get into a little bit more of a process, they are super, super fast, like click, click, click on your phone, and you can adjust them right there. It's really easy. We've got lots of YouTube videos about how to use them and things like that. So I think as you're using this Plann resource, we once again want to make sure that the images that you're posting really do have a cohesive color set, and that is only going to help you that much more. So that is something that we're always really, really happy to be able to share, because it's been such an important tool in my life, to be able to make sure all my digital images match my film, and to make sure my mobile images match my regular work, and that it all feels really cohesive. It's really important.
Definitely. And I think this is where, with you and Plann, we really come together, because we both have that mission of wanting people
to help people to really be able to have these curated feeds that they desire. And I mentioned it earlier, we're really hoping to help photographers kind of bring the art and business together so that they can have more room to be more creative and thriving artists. And so we do have a course for that as well, at KT Mary Courses. We're closed right now, so we just have wait lists, but for anybody is a photographer who is already in business and is wanting to learn more about that, then be sure to check us out there, and on Instagram too, of course.
Definitely. And of course, we'll also add those links to our replay as well for everyone who's watching the replay, so you don't miss out either. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much, Katie, for being here. I'm like a huge fan, so I loved hearing about you and your backstory and all your advice. So I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. It's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity and for creating such a great resource and continuing to update it. So I can't wait to see what else is on the horizon for Plann.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye.